tonight. Looks like finally we're getting some rain, which is good because you might be able to see Humpty's ball has dropped. It's getting a bit low. I've just realised my door to my lab is open. I should probably go close that. But just really quickly, I have mounted the heads. I haven't torqued the nuts up yet because I'm waiting for a torque wrench. I've already got 3 other torque wrenches, but I don't have one that goes down low enough for these because they're only done up to about, I think it's 10 foot-pounds, which is not much. You get people on the forums talking about, they just do it by hand, and the way they always put it is, now they can feel when the stud is at its yield point. And I always wonder, when they say now, how many did they mess up before they got to that point? So I'd rather just do it with a torque wrench and get it right. They both went on okay. I did make a new stepped stud for here. So I had to figure out what the thread was. It turns out the big end is 5/16 Whitworth. So I made up a new one. I looked up what sort of steel they use for these, and it's EN21, which is a British grade of steel. I've got no hope of getting that here. I did a little bit of hunting around trying to figure out what was equivalent, and in the end just used I basically cut down a metric grade 8.8 bolt, which I think will work fine. So it is high tensile. We'll see how that goes. I have no idea what this is, of course. This could be completely wrong steel as well. So I figured make a new one. The reason I really wanted to make a new one is the bottom of the threads on this one are corroded away. And all of these, or a lot of these, the end of the stud breaks into the water jacket. I sealed them with the Permatex high temperature thread sealant. It's got PTFE in it. It does say that this stuff is for studs that go into through holes, and it's definitely hydraulic fluid and oil resistant. I'm hoping it's water resistant. I'm pretty sure that it is, but we'll see. It seals up the threads, of course. It doesn't lock things in though. So these studs, I was able to screw them all the way into the block, and of course they bottom out where the thread finishes, which is what you want. So they will lock in. This one though, because it's going into a through hole and it's a step stud, you could just keep threading that all the way through. So I used some 243 on that, so that should actually lock it into place, I hope. These aren't done up tight. The reason there are 2 nuts on these 3 studs is this is where the oil filter goes. There's a bracket that mounts on here, and I'm wondering if this step stud is the reason that there wasn't the oil filter mounted on this, because it's too short. You still would have been able to mount it with the other 2 bolts though, so I don't know. Maybe they changed this over and didn't put the filter back. I'm really not sure what happened there. And I did just sit the inlet pipe on just to make sure it all fits. It does. Need to put the gaskets in there. I have checked that it turns over without anything hitting, which it does. And these are the nuts for the inlet and exhaust. So they're just sitting in some carb clean just to clean the muck off. And a friend of mine asked, did I measure the compression before I took this apart? The answer is no, because my compression tester won't fit the plug holes. I don't think it would even fit that bigger head that I had that had the wrong size plug. But now I've got the correct 10mm plugs to go in here. I would have to make some kind of adapter to fit onto my compression tester. I'm not quite sure how I would do that. I have to see what I can figure out. But I don't think it matters too much. I'll see if it goes. If it goes, it goes. And somebody else also mentioned, could I use 3D printing to make the little rubber grommets that I need for here? And the answer to that is yes. I hadn't thought of it, but I do have a 3D printable plastic that's called TPU, which is a kind of rubber. And I think I could make these out of that material. Should be strong enough. I'm not sure how well it'll last, but at least it means I'll be able to print them out and get this assembled and hopefully test it out. So that would be good. That's why I've got these in my hand. I'm going to go and measure them up and draw them up in CAD so I can 3D print them tomorrow. But no, I'm pleased with how that's coming along. Looks pretty good. You can test these as a complete unit. There is a film on YouTube where someone shows doing that, and he's built a kind of wooden stand for the radiator and to hold all of this, block it all up, because obviously with the back wheel on there you don't want it coming loose because it'll take off. So I may look at doing that, figure out some way I can do that. And I think that's about it for now. Out in my little lab today. I am doing stuff in big shed as well. Just realised this place really needs a clean up. But somebody commented, I can't remember who it was, sorry, on my last film about couldn't I just 3D print some little grommets that hold the sort of engine gearbox to the rear frame. And the answer is yes, I can. I just hadn't thought of it. So I've modelled some up just in Fusion. I mean, these are dead simple, and I've printed them out. These were my test prints. Now I've printed out some more in a plastic that's called TPU. So I'm using this eSun stuff. This stuff you have to print really slowly. I think basically the more flexible a filament, the more slowly you have to print it. So just printing this little lot took about 3 hours, and now I have to print the other side of it. But those should work fine. This is basically 3D printed rubber like material. I can't remember what TPU stands for. Thermoplastic something. But I think those will work. They need a little bit of cleanup. And I can at least assemble things with these and see how they hold up. I'm pretty sure they'll hold up just fine. Because I think the stuff is as strong or stronger than rubber. And as long as the 3D print is good, and these are printed solid, so they're fully plastic, that should work. So I'm going to pop these off the bed now. They should come off pretty easily, hopefully. Maybe not. Give them a quick clean up and then print the other half. Back looking at the bike. My little 3D printed things worked pretty well. That's kind of how they came out. Nice and solid, about the same as the rubber, I think, probably a little bit harder. And they've been done up. You might think, how tight do you make them? How do you know when they're tight enough? But there's actually a little shoulder on that stud, so you just do the nuts up tight to that shoulder. It had been put together with washers and spring washers, but checking in the parts book, those aren't there. So I've reassembled it based on the parts book, which is just a washer and the rubber. And while I was doing that, I noticed that this pivot was wrong. So this is the bolt that was in there, and then there was this motley collection of washers and spring washers and other bits and pieces. Because I had taken the other one apart and restored that, I knew that there was supposed to be bushes in there. Basically they look almost the same as those, but steel. So I ended up machining those up and putting this back together the way it's supposed to be according to the parts book. But I did end up, I was having trouble with my chuck again, and then I noticed when it was spinning that there was a little bit of daylight I could see in here when this was done up tight. And it turns out it still wasn't completely tight on that shoulder. So I had to take it all apart again, machine out a little bit more thread, and we're talking fractions of a millimeter. And then that allowed me to get it to screw tight up against that shoulder. And then of course I had to reface it, which I did. Reassembled it now, and it seems a lot better, and it seems like it's going back to the same place every time. So you can see this was my first attempt at making the top hats, and you can see how the hole and the bit I was machining are completely off center. One of them's off center, probably both. So it worked a lot better once I might just mark what that steel is. Once I redid it, I get a lot more accuracy if I take a part out and put it in. Of course, if you're trying to get things concentric, it's best to never take them out. But obviously sometimes you do have to take things out and turn them around. If you really want things concentric, you use the four jaw, because then you're setting it yourself, you're dialing it in. I went through the spare bike parts and I found the lower oil pipe that I was missing on this one, so I'm just going to use that if I ever reassemble the other bike, which is looking less and less likely now. I think I don't need two of them. I'd rather have one good running one and a decent supply of spares. So I'm probably just going to put it all away and keep it safe. I might put something on that to stop it flash rusting, or rusting rather, surface rusting. But this is all good. I do want to fit an oil pressure gauge, just to be certain everything's good. It's like, I really think you need one on most things, especially older things. And there is actually a port down here that you can tap off, but that needs a special banjo fitting, which I don't have. So instead, this top cover is actually pretty thick. It's over 1/8 of an inch thick. I think it must be closer to 3/16. So I was able to drill and tap that. This is a BSP pipe fitting. I've got the correct taps for that. And this takes this one I think takes a sort of nylon oil gauge hose. Not sure if you could put a copper one into that, but I do have other fittings for the copper pipes. I'll probably use copper, so I might have to change that one over. I think these are sort of interchangeable, can't remember, but I've got enough bits that I can do that. So I'll take the oil pressure feed off there. I went through my box of old gauges and I found this tiny Eureka gauge. The printing is coming off it, it's all rusted, so I need to clean this up. I don't even know what that is on the back, if that's a washer that's rusted away or something. The actual mechanism for the gauge is always pretty straightforward. It's just a little sealed piece of kind of like flattened tube. That's what they always look like to me, and the pressure makes them expand, which moves the needle round. But I think what I will do is, you can get new tops like this from the spares. Pretty sure you can get blank ones, or else I could make one. This is just 1mm aluminium. I could probably make a little hardwood block and hammer the edges around that. And then I'm going to shift the speedo over slightly and mount the oil pressure gauge next to it. I think that'll look quite good and it'll be functional. I think they did actually come with oil pressure gauges at some point, but I'm not sure when. So that's what I'll do there. These are the flanges for the exhaust. I've cleaned those up. I'll go on there. Inlet is sitting on there, it's not bolted up yet. And somewhere, this is there's a felt seal that goes in there, and this is the sort of cover for the U-joint that goes on there, and that's what allows it to sort of rotate up and down. So the next thing to do would be not actually sure. This is the rear brake lever. What is the next thing to do? I guess maybe put this down on the ground and mount the rear end on it, and then I can look at how I can build a stand for this. So something that will support it on the ground made out of scrap bits of timber, which will let me then start it. So I need spark plugs, I need to put all the gaskets and things around the oil pressure system, gaskets on these, carburetor on there, and temporarily hook up the radiator. That'll be next. I was hoping to get to the Riley today, but no, all this other stuff took too long. And I think that's all I'm going to be able to do this weekend. I've got an old friend of mine is visiting the country tomorrow, so we're going to catch up for lunch in town. We knew each other from sort of school days. We both ended up going overseas after university at the same time, and he ended up never coming back, and lives in Austria now, of all places. So going to catch up with him and one of his kids, which will be good. But what I might do while I'm in town is go and look at one of the motorcycle places, because if I do get this running and want to ride it on the road, I need to get my motorcycle license, and to do that I need to go on a course. So I have got an open face helmet, but I think if I'm going to be on the road, I really want a closed faced helmet. Just the thought of being knocked off and having your chin rubble on the pavement doesn't appeal. I think I've got gloves, but I would need boots and pants and a jacket. So while I'm in town, I might as well go, and I'm pretty sure there's a place in town that sells all that stuff. I'll go have a look. And I think that's it. Oh no, the last thing. The other thing I did today is I made these sleeves. They're just made out of steel, Zintex steel, simply folded and welded together. The top and the bottom are folded over to provide a smooth edge, so it's not a sharp edge. And I just gave them a quick coat of black. It's basically black zinc, which it's not primer, it is paint. Just to give it a bit more protection. It's Zintex steel, so it's zinc coated steel. So I'm going to leave those a little bit for the paint to really dry, and then I'll probably rub the outside of it with some of the leather conditioner just to make it a bit easier to slip them in. I did try the first one and it does fit in there, but it's a very tight fit, which is good. But I think that'll help me just slide it in there, and it'll help condition the leather on the inside, and that should make the bags hold their shape. I do need to repair some of the stitching, but because it's got these outside seams, once it's got the metal in there, it should be easy enough for me to stitch it from the outside, just hand stitch where it's coming apart. And I think those should look really good. Yeah, I think that's everything on this for now. The one last thing is Milo likes it when I'm making films. And yeah, so he ran all the way over when he heard I was talking, and looked most disappointed that he got here after I was finished. So, you know, good boy. And that oil gauge is pretty crusty. I had to get it apart, but I had to grip the brass bit, and it's crushed it a little bit. So I'm not sure I can get that round again. But that's kind of the mechanism in there. It's just a little piece of flattened brass tube, and the pressure makes it expand, and there's a little lever arm there that moves the needle. That's all there is. The face of it, as soon as I got the glass off, it literally blew away in the breeze. That wasn't actually even stuck there, but I got a picture of it before I did that, so I can recreate that face. And I think it's because it had rust underneath it. Just peeled the paint off. So that needs cleaning up. Here's the little needle. There's a little, it was a rubber seal that went under the glass. Again, I can 3D print a new one of those, and I think I'll just soak all of this in the evaporust. That's actually already rusted through at the back, but I can repair that. So hopefully I can put this together as a good gauge. But this is why these are pretty reliable. There's nothing to them. It's very simple. There's not a lot to go wrong. So I think, yeah, soak that in a vaporust for a few days and see if we can rebuild it.